Have you ever sat across a dinner table from someone you loved and realized they were plotting your downfall? Maybe you felt the cold sting of a rumor started by your closest confidant. It burns. You question your own sanity. You wonder how you completely missed the red flags. But listen to me. You are not the first to feel this agonizing pain. Look at the ultimate betrayal. Look at Jesus. He had a tight inner circle. 12 guys. He washed their dirty feet. He fed them. He trusted them with his life. And one of them, the very guy who managed their money, sold him out for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus knows exactly what it's like when the people who should have your back plunge a dagger into it instead. So how did he survive that level of toxicity without letting it destroy his soul? How did he walk right into the trap without losing his peace? Let's look at the night of the Last Supper. Jesus is sitting there breaking bread with his friends, and he knows, he fully knows. He looks Judas right in the eyes and passes him the bread. Think about the emotional restraint that takes. You and I would probably flip the table. We would expose them right there in front of everybody. We would scream, "You are a traitor." But Jesus doesn't do that. He actually protects the dignity of his betrayer in that specific moment. John chapter 13, verses 21 through 30 describes this incredibly tense room. Jesus gets troubled in his spirit and simply says one of them will betray him. The disciples are totally confused. They start asking who it is. Jesus hands the piece of bread to Judas. But he doesn't scream out the plot to the whole room. He just tells Judas to go do what he is going to do and to do it quickly. Why? Because Jesus understood a crucial reality about toxic people. You cannot control their actions. You can't fix a heart that has already firmly decided to walk away and do you harm. Judas had already made his deal. He wanted the 30 pieces of silver. So Jesus released him. He let him walk out into the dark night. This is a massive lesson for you. When you realize someone is actively working against you, you don't have to launch a public smear campaign. You don't have to frantically convince everybody else that this person is the absolute villain. Sometimes the absolute strongest thing you can do is just let them walk away. Release them. Let them take their toxicity somewhere else. Jesus didn't chase Judas down the street begging him to stay. He didn't negotiate with a terrorist in his inner circle. He let him go. And notice something else. Jesus had boundaries. He had the 12 disciples, sure. But he also had an inner three: Peter, James, and John. Judas was never invited into that innermost sanctuary of trust. Jesus didn't give his deepest vulnerabilities to the man he knew was stealing from the money bag. You see, John chapter 12, verse 6 tells us Judas was a thief long before he was a traitor. Jesus saw the red flags. He loved Judas, but he did not give him unprotected access to his soul. You have to learn to love people without handing them the weapon to destroy you. Fast forward a few hours to the Garden of Gethsemane. It is dark. Jesus is exhausted. And out of the shadows steps Judas. He doesn't come alone. He brings a mob armed to the teeth with swords and clubs. And how does Judas identify Jesus to the hit squad? With a kiss. Think about how incredibly twisted that is. He takes a universal sign of affection and weaponizes it. He uses intimacy to deliver death. If a friend did that to you, if they took your deepest secrets and weaponized them in public, your instinct would be to strike back. You would want to destroy them. But look at the response in Matthew chapter 26, verse 50. Jesus looks at the man who is actively orchestrating his murder and says, "Friend, do what you came to do." Friend. He called him friend. He isn't being sarcastic. He isn't being weak. Jesus absolutely refused to let someone else's toxic behavior dictate his own character. That he refused to let the poison in. When someone betrays you, the greatest danger is not the betrayal itself. The true danger is that you allow their actions to turn you into a bitter, cold, resentful person. You start building massive walls. You start treating every new person in your life like they are a potential traitor. You stop loving. Jesus proves you do not have to absorb the poison. You stay true to who you are. Peter gets furious in that exact moment. He pulls out a sword and chops off a servant's ear. He wants revenge. He wants blood. But Jesus stops him cold. Jesus reaches out and heals the bleeding man right there in the dirt. You can see it in Luke chapter 22, verse 51. He tells Peter to put the sword away, because fighting toxic people with their own toxic weapons will only destroy you. You don't beat a backstabber by stabbing them back. You don't win a smear campaign by starting your own. You just get covered in the same mud. Jesus survived the darkest betrayal by keeping his hands clean and his heart completely pure. He knew his vindication was not coming from a street fight in a garden. He trusted God to settle the score. We need to talk about another guy in that inner circle, Peter, because Judas wasn't the only one who broke Jesus' heart that night. Peter totally abandoned him. When the pressure hit the fan, when the mob dragged Jesus away, Peter panicked. He stood by a fire and swore he didn't even know the man. 3 times. That is a deep betrayal. You've probably felt that too. You hit rock bottom, you look around, and the friends who swore they would ride or die are suddenly nowhere to be found. They ghost you. They distance themselves to save their own reputation. But notice how Jesus handles Peter. It's completely different from how he handled Judas. After Jesus beats the grave, he actually goes looking for Peter. He tracks him down on a beach and cooks him breakfast. You can read the whole beautiful exchange in John chapter 21, verses 15 through 17. Jesus gently restores him. He gives him his purpose back. Why? Why does Jesus let Judas walk away but chases after Peter? Because there is a massive difference between a toxic enemy and a failing friend. Judas operated out of cold, calculated malice. He wanted the money. He plotted the destruction. Peter operated out of pure human weakness. He just got terrified. You have to learn how to spot this difference in your own life. Do not throw away a good friend over a bad moment. If someone messes up, if they fail you out of fear or sheer stupidity, but their heart is genuinely shattered over it, there is room for grace. Matthew chapter 26, verse 75 tells us Peter wept bitterly. He was wrecked by his own failure. He repented. Judas felt remorse, but he didn't run back to Jesus for mercy. He chose death. So look closely at the people who have hurt you. Are they a Judas who needs permanent boundaries? Or are they a Peter who just needs a conversation and a little bit of grace? Don't let the pain of one toxic backstabber make you cut off people who genuinely love you, but just made a tragic mistake. Let's talk about the absolute hardest part of surviving a toxic relationship: the aftermath. When the dust settles and the people who tried to ruin your life are just walking around, acting like nothing happened. How do you stop the bitterness from rotting your soul from the inside out? Look at Jesus on the cross. He is bleeding out. The people who framed him, lied about him, and drove spikes through his flesh are literally throwing dice for his clothes right at his feet. And what does he say? Luke chapter 23, verse 34 records the most mind-bending statement in human history. He says, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Forgive them. He didn't wait for an apology. He didn't demand they validate his trauma first. He just released the debt. Listen to me carefully. Forgiveness is not about letting the toxic person off the hook. It is about taking yourself off their hook. When you refuse to forgive someone who betrayed you, you are basically chaining yourself to their sick behavior forever. You are giving them free rent inside your own head. Jesus knew his mission was way too important to get sidelined by a bitter grudge. He had a resurrection to get to. You have a future to get to. You don't have to invite that person back to dinner. You don't have to trust them again. Forgiveness and access are 2 totally different things, but you do have to let the poison out of your heart. When you finally look at the people who broke your trust and hand them over to God, when you say, "I release you," you take all of your power back. They don't get to control your emotions anymore. They don't get to dictate your joy. God sees exactly what happened to you behind closed doors. Romans chapter 12, verse 19 makes it crystal clear that vengeance belongs to God alone. He will settle the accounts. Your job is to focus on your own healing. Your job is to walk out of the ashes of that betrayal and step right into the new life waiting for you. So what happens after you survive the hit? You forgave them. You let the poison go. But there is a massive lingering side effect to severe betrayal: paranoia. You start thinking everyone is secretly plotting against you. You want to build a fortress, lock yourself inside, and never let another human being get close to you ever again. But look closely at what Jesus did. He didn't let Judas destroy his capacity for friendship. He didn't let one toxic relationship ruin the remaining 11. After the resurrection, he went right back to his crew. In John chapter 15, verse 15, before the cross even happened, he set the standard. He looked at them and said, "I no longer call you servants. Instead, I have called you friends." He doubled down on community. This is where so many people completely lose the battle against toxic trauma. They let one treacherous backstabber convince them that all relationships are fake. Do not buy that lie. If you let a betrayer isolate you forever, they still win. They are still controlling your life from the shadows. Yes, you need to be wiser now. You absolutely need stronger boundaries. But you cannot survive this life completely alone. Jesus still trusted Peter. He still loved John. He actually handed the entire future of his movement over to guys who were deeply flawed but genuinely devoted. If you want to fully heal from a toxic friendship, you have to bravely step back into the arena. You have to find your real tribe. Look for the people who show consistent, quiet loyalty over time. Find the friends who celebrate your wins and stand with you in the dark trenches. The ultimate victory against a toxic person is to go live a beautiful, connected, and deeply loved life without them. You just have to be courageous enough to open your heart one more time. There is one final reality about betrayal that changes absolutely everything, and it might be the hardest truth to accept. Think about what Judas actually accomplished that night in the garden. He thought he was ending a movement. He thought he was putting Jesus in the ground forever. But what did that toxic kiss actually do? It pushed Jesus right into his ultimate purpose. Without the betrayal, there is no arrest. Without the arrest, there is no cross. And without the cross, there is no resurrection. God literally took the absolute worst, most malicious act of a toxic friend and used it to save the entire human race. Listen to me right now. The person who betrayed you thought they were destroying you. They were wrong. They thought they were burying you, but they didn't realize they were planting you. God is the ultimate recycler of human pain. Remember Joseph from the Old Testament? His own brothers tossed him into a dark pit and sold him off as a slave. It is the ultimate family betrayal. But years later, after surviving false accusations and prison time, Joseph rises to become the second most powerful man in the world. He looks right at the brothers who sold him out in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20 and says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." God will take the absolute worst thing someone did to you and flip it into your greatest advantage. The terrible rumor they spread, it just cleared all the fake friends out of your life. The business deal they stole, it pushed you out of a stagnant pond and forced you to build something completely new. The heart they broke, it exposed your deepest wounds so God could finally heal them properly. Do not give your betrayer the credit for writing the end of your story. God holds the pen. The grave could not hold Jesus. And this dark season of betrayal will not hold you. You are going to step out of this tomb. You don't have to stay stuck in the pain of a broken trust. Jesus showed us the exact blueprint to make it out alive. Protect your peace. Release the toxic people. Extend grace to the friends who just stumbled and let God handle the revenge. Your story doesn't end in the dark garden of betrayal. It ends with a completely brand new life. If this message gave you some clarity today, make sure to subscribe and join our community. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me how you are trusting God to heal your own heart from a bad betrayal. Share this exact message with someone who is walking through the fire right now. Keep your head up. You are going to survive this.